Iranian Phantoms hit back. Iraq had tried to copy the blitzkrieg tactics which won Israel the Six-Day War by smashing the Iranian Air Force on the ground, but either they missed or their bombs failed to explode. The Iranians carried out up to 150 sorties a day, mostly with planes kept airworthy by cannibalizing others. The Iraqis compounded their error with military planning so poor that they failed to provide adequate air defenses for their own vital oil facilities. Oil facilities on both sides burned as the Iraqi invasion ground to a halt and hostilities entered a phase of sporadic war. Khorram Shah in the wake of invasion. Its loss offended Iranian national honor and, dubbed City of Blood, it became a focus for the Iranian counterattack. Despite Iraq's initial advantages of surprise and manpower, its blitzkrieg had failed, and it had to reconcile itself to a protracted war for which it was unprepared. Iraq's forces were led personally by President Saddam Hussein, a strong-willed, intransigent man whose lack of military training made him a careless planner. He entered the war with no clear idea how to end it, consistently overestimated the abilities of his troops, and responded to setbacks by executing generals who retreated. For Iran, Hashemi Rafsanjani, Ayatollah Khomeini's most trusted lieutenant, was effectively the military leader for most of the war. Popular and charismatic, he had been sacked from the Shah's army for influencing troops towards the Islamic Revolution. He had a gift for simplifying complex tactics and became an ingenious and pragmatic commander. Inviting comparison with the First World War, Iraq made only minor territorial gains and, losing the initiative, built an artificial lake to protect Basra, its second city. Iran's obsession with capturing Basra would see them mounting repeated offensives through the marshes to the north, centered on the oil-rich Majnoon Islands. Despite ferocious bombardments, Iraq was now failing in its objectives, confirming it had exhausted its capacity to make further gains. With supply lines badly overstretched, partly the result of unclear war aims and strategy, the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein announced a voluntary withdrawal from all captured territory. In the event, and just as in Kuwait more recently, the withdrawal was not complete. Ironically, Saddam Hussein was sanctioning retreat, the very maneuver for which he had already executed 3 generals. Iraq's aim of undermining Iran's Islamic Revolution had more than failed. Instead, successful Iranian resistance, then expulsion of the invaders, had cemented it.
This is a very important point. Iran, as we know, is a Shia country. Iraq, though it has a Shia majority, under Saddam Hussein, who was a Sunni, that majority was held down under his thumb. He feared this new Shia power. It's not that Iran was newly Shia, but it had a government which was embracing that aspect of the culture. What the Shah never had. As we saw, the Shah was a westernizer. He felt he had more contact with ancient Persia than with Islamic Iranian history. And so, while Saddam Hussein hoped this attack would be successful, he would gain the oil and he would destroy this thing that he feared, a powerful Shia state to his east, which would be attractive to his Shia majority population, which he had already put down several times. Bloody massacres of civilians.
Khomeini's volunteers headed for the front, their martyrdom symbolized by the red waters of the bizarre Fountain of Blood in Tehran. With Iran gripped by religious fervor since 1978, they were ready for a high battle toll. But they lacked lacked military skills and their habit of congregating indecisively presented the ideal targets that ensure the high casualty rate.
I don't know if you could make out what those soldiers were chanting there. They were chanting two phrases. Allah Akbar, God is great, and Khomeini Akbar. Khomeini, the Ayatollah Khomeini, is great. Revolutionary fervor, Islamic revolutionary fervor is a powerful motivating factor here, as with Hamas and with the Shia Hezbollah, as we've seen.
They also had a message for Western governments supporting Iraq with armaments.
These people here, these people who come here to fight, they just, they've left their families, they've left their houses. Just they want to come here just to fight the Iraqis. But your country is now helping Iraq, right? But why do these people, how old is it? How old is God? That was 14 or something. But he's come here to fight. They've left his mother, they've left his father.
Just like the First World War, volunteer battalions were raised from particular towns. School friends encouraged to join together, like the British PALS regiments. Their slaughter on the borders of Iraq hit individual communities especially hard, but they turned the tide as Iran took the initiative. More innovative than the Iraqis, the Iranians used frogmen to spearhead a succession of offensives aimed at Basra. They headed waterborne attacks, penetrating Awa al-Hawazeh marshes to try to cut the Basra-Baghdad highway. Supported by fast boats, their mobility surprised Iraqi strategists who regarded the marshes as a watertight natural defense barrier. With floating pontoons, these tactics were as innovative as those used by the North Vietnamese against the Americans a decade earlier. Iraqi strength in heavy weapons was now a disadvantage in battles that at their peak involved 500,000 soldiers with 1 in 20 killed in action. Iraqi forces entrenched behind the deeply dug emplacements of the artificial fish lake east of Basra. Here, Iran's offensives were far more costly. On these flatlands dominated by heavily fortified Iraqi positions, Iranian human wave attacks without air cover provided ideal targets for Iraqi artillery. But often inflexible, the Iraqis were easily circumvented by Iranians moving south to another important success in this area, the capture of al-Rizat Island and the Shatt-al-Arab. Here was another battlefield presenting images of the First World War, the winter conditions recalling the Battle of the Somme in 1916. Deeply dug trenches broken by strong points and dugouts, smouldering from recent fighting. Everywhere signs of the soldiers' natural enemy. Thick mud, dried now, but recently the clinging stuff that bogged down the fighting. And brand new stocks of rocket-propelled grenades. Iran, now under arms embargo, was already self-sufficient in such weapons production. The prospect of Basra being cut off eventually panicked Iraqi leaders into widespread use of chemical weapons. Iranian gas masks afforded little protection, and chemical weapons, more than any other Iraqi ordnance, were responsible for extensive Iranian battlefield casualties.
This is something we're going to be discussing quite a lot. Iraqi use of chemical weapons here